Welcome to the Random Encounter Show. I'm DeathStalker V. Huh. Coming back at you with our weekly impromptu, script-free. Everything we do around here is impromptu and script-free, to be honest. Weekly episode of Table Talk. Make sure you have something to drink and come sit yourself here at the table with me, because we're going to be getting into a sorely needed discussion around here today. Yeah? The most frequently asked thing of me when it comes to my emails and inboxes on our Facebook page and in the Random Encounter Army and such are those coming to me with recommendations on where to start with getting into the hobby of solitaire role-playing tabletop games. And at first that seemed a little bit odd to me, I'm not going to lie. Because like here on YouTube, you search solo RPG and such terms, you're going to be hit with a myriad of various videos from various people that are explaining where to start and how to start. Yeah? So like I said, I was like, there's a lot of content there. I'm not sure we needed to cover that. But upon further conversation with a lot of these people, I realized that what they were seeking isn't really has been addressed well. Because what they were seeking was a way to start for someone who was a true cold start beginner. They have never once played a tabletop role-playing game. They don't know anything about it, the concepts and everything. They're complete newbie to the hobby. And I can see where if you were looking for starting in the hobby and you've got this person over here throwing different full role-playing game systems at you, and this person over here throwing other things at you, and then there's campaign settings and modules, and some have miniatures, some play on a virtual tabletop, this, that, the other, oracles. I see how if you don't understand the basis of the hobby and you don't understand how subjective tabletop role-playing games are, especially on the solo scene, or in the solo scene, that it could easily become just a massive cloud of confusion. You know, that you just sort of get lost in all of it. I get it. Yeah? So I said, what can I do to help those people coming to me? What can I recommend? What can I give them to help them get their feet wet in the hobby and come to an understanding on the concepts and mechanics of role-playing games? So I went and I chose 2 games out of my collection that I think true beginners will be able to pick up and quickly start learning the conceptions and mechanics behind tabletop role-playing games on their own. It's one thing to talk about how role-playing works and how to do this and how to do that. I think the best learning experience, at least for myself and probably most other people, is actually getting on the table and actually playing the games. That's where the learning takes place. The theories and all that are great, but the learning takes place in practical application. So like I said, I chose 2 recommendations here. I had a few criteria for them with the beginner in mind. First off, these are not full role-playing game systems, okay? I wanted to recommend things where people didn't have to go buy a full role-playing game rulebook, or few, because who buys one? Okay? But I also wanted the least moving parts as possible. You don't need to buy extra tools. You don't need to have oracles. All this kind of stuff is not needed. I want it to be stuff that you could play that you didn't need miniatures for or anything. I chose games specifically that you need a few things that are commonly available around your household, more than likely. Paper, pencil, 6-sided dice. Yeah? The 6-sided dice may be the most exotic thing you need here. Swipe some out of your Monopoly set you got laying in the closet since 1993. If you don't have any 6-sided dice, go downtown. Break up a back alley's crap game. Take their dice and lecture them on the evils of illegal gambling. Yeah? Are much easier almost any store carries 6-sided standard dice. So once you buy the book, all you need is stuff that you probably already have. Another criteria was that within 20 minutes of anything I have to recommend here, you're going to be rolling up a character and already playing the game and learning from it and enjoying it. Yeah? So, without further ado, let's get off into these recommendations. One last criteria that I wanted to talk about was that these games, even though I recommend them for beginners, these games are great for veterans as well. Hey, I've got decades into the tabletop hobby. These are games that are still in my collection. Another thing is, even if you aren't interested in solo play per se in the future, these games make a great introduction to the concepts and mechanics behind tabletop RPGs. You will feel more comfortable approaching a group and maybe playing with a group in the future. So anyways, my number one recommendation is a choose-your-own-adventure style game called Fabled Lands. Okay? First off, choose your own adventure style. There's many ways to go about playing tabletop RPGs. The choose your own adventure style is one of the oldest. It's not the oldest approach, but it is one of the oldest. When we say choose your own adventure style, what we mean are novel-like books that normally contain a light rule system to go along with it. And you start off in your books, and if you just open them up at first, it looks like complete chaos. There are paragraphs and sections with numbers on them, and none of it would make sense if you tried to read it like you would a regular novel. What with these books, it's going to give you a starting point in the front of the book. You're going to go into the book, and you're going to have a list of options at the end of each section of what you want your character to do. You may also find combat and such things in these game books, and you're presented with where you need to go next based on if you win or lose such things. This style of game was made popular first because we're going to have to fight Steve Crompton if we don't mention that Flying Buffalo combined the ideas of role-playing games. Their flagship at the time was Tunnels and Trolls. And also to choose your own adventure style novels, they combined them into a adventure module called Buffalo Castle in 1976. Okay? That concept proved very popular in going through the evolution of gaming. We would see adventure modules written for other tabletop role-playing games that utilize choose-your-own-adventure mechanics. We would also see the rise of things like fighting fantasy, probably the most well-known choose-your-own-adventure style role-playing game going on around. This has been around since the early 80s. There's a ton of these. I've reviewed Fighting Fantasy. Go back on the channel, check it out. I love these books too, but there's a reason that they're not number one on my recommended list. And we'll get into that in just a second. Fabled Lands, though, is just something magical. The reason why things like adventure modules for full role-playing games, they don't meet our criteria because I don't want you to have to go find a role-playing game rule set separate than your book. But things like Firetop Mountain, there's tons of other ones out there, Destiny Quest and such. These games sort of represent one story, or maybe a location. You create a character and you play through the book to the end, and each book is independent from each other for the most part when it comes to these choose-your-own-adventure games. They're a lot of fun, not going to lie. But when it comes to Fabled Lands, I have plenty of Fabled Land books here. I absolutely love this system. When it comes to Fabled Lands, Books do not represent individual stories or locations. Books represent sections of a world map. Let's take a look here. Here's an example of the world map for Fabled Lands. Each book represents a location. Fabled Lands, instead of being stories, it's a big open world, choose your own adventure style role-playing game. When I say open world, think of video games like Grand Theft Auto, that there is no linear railroad style path that you have to take. You roll up your character, you choose what class you want, you get what items you get and stuff, and you start out your character, and you can start out in any of the books for your beginning character. But you start out and your adventure is up to you. There's locations to visit. There's NPCs and our non-player characters, if you will. There's political intrigue involved. There's mysteries to solve. There's all just sorts of things that your character can get involved with here. And it really resembles, I think, as best as a choose-your-own-adventure style game can, a living, breathing world for your character to adventure in and explore and get involved with. One of the things that sets this game really apart from others is the fact that as you do that adventuring, as you complete quests, as you get involved with political intrigue and court intrigue and help people and combat and all the things that are involved with the world, the game world actually evolves along with your character in different ways. Take the war-torn kingdom here. You get adventuring off in Socara, is the name of the land this represents. There's a civil war going on in this land. You can ignore all that and just adventure and do your thing there, or you can actually get involved with that civil war. Let's say the war spills over and a town gets burned down. The first time you visited this town, it was a lively, bustling city. Your character was able to explore a lot of it and do many different things. But now the town's burnt down. Now anytime you visit that city, it's a smoldering ruins, basically. There's new opportunities and new things to explore because the town has changed. And not only that, there's big world-changing events. There's things that can happen in one book, and those events are the echoes of that event can spill over into all these other books. Like I said, these are not linear books. These are not a series like novels. They're not one-sided adventures. If you start out in book 1, you'll have opportunities in traveling, and it'll tell you that you need to flip over to, say, book 5, for example. So your character, like I said, your character's just moving in between books based on travel. These are nations, are land masses you could think of. And each one's quite different from each other. But the way that the world evolves and the way that the world changes, sometimes overall, sometimes in small ways, and it actually changes as you play, and your decisions have consequences to them, I find it very fascinating. The Fabled Lands, you're learning to roll up a character. You know, you're learning about the concepts behind role-playing games, that it's not some linear story, a railroad story, or at least it shouldn't be. That your character is free to go where they want to go, make decisions, and do what they want to do in the world. It's choose your own adventure, so there's not total freedom, but you get a very, I don't know how to say, it feels open, it feels free, even though that it isn't. I don't know. It's highly recommended from me, guys. I've spent a lot of hours in Fabled Lands. This game's been around since the 90s and is still not finished. They're still putting out the rest of the series. This is a massive project. And as far as choose your own adventure style gaming goes, it is the one that I recommend above all others. Choose your own adventure style is limiting in ways, but as a solo player, it's very helpful in the fact that it holds your hand. you're not going to come to a point where you don't understand what to do next, because with choose your own adventure gaming, the story and everything is up to the book. You know, this book is your game master. You're going to be presented with choices. Now, in the game, you can come to where you don't know what to do. There's mysteries and quests and stuff in this game. It takes a lot of exploration. You're going to put some hours into this. But like I said, it's very worthwhile, and you're going to learn plenty of the mechanics. You're going to learn how combat. You're going to learn magic. You're going to learn social interactions. You're going to learn all kind of stuff that you're going to be able to use later in your hobby that most all other role-playing games use in some form or fashion. Yeah? So this is my #1 recommendation for the cold start beginner. Fighting Fantasy is a lot of fun. I've tried that game, Destiny Quest. That was a lot of fun. That's a really good one as well, but it's nowhere near on the scope of Fabled Lands. And the reason Fabled Lands probably stays at the #1 spot, at least for Choose Your Own Adventures go, is the replayability. If you play the Warlock of Firetop Mountain for Fighting Fantasy, it's fantastic for a playthrough, but it's not a book that you're going to turn around and want to replay. You know, this is a very linear story. Fabled Lands, like I said, you can spend hours and hours and hours inside one of these books. My recommendation for getting into Fabled Lands is buy one book from the series that's most interesting to you. My recommendation is always the War-Torn Kingdom. I think that's just the most natural starting point in the series. There's nothing stopping you from starting in the Court of Hidden Faces, for example, or the Serpent King's Domain, or Lords of the Rising Sun, or Cities of Gold and Glory. That's another good one. But the War-Torn Kingdom is where I would say start out. And I would say just buy this book. Explore this book. Get your feet wet with this book. If it's something that you really love, start grabbing the other books and start exploring the whole world. But there's one thing about this game I think a lot of people run into, is that you can put a ton of hours into your character, and this game can be a little bit deadly. So you put a ton of hours into a character, it sort of throws you off from wanting to play again immediately, at least for me. Okay? So like I said, get your feet wet with one book out of the series. My recommendation, The War-Torn Kingdom. Let me get this out of the way. Get a sip of water. Next up in our recommendations is something that absolutely has zero coverage as far as I can find on YouTube, or pretty much anywhere else other than a few written articles. You guys love coming to the Random Encounters show because I give you something different around here. It's not the same old stuff being repeated over and over. Yeah? This game is called Treasure Hunter Role-Playing Game. I've had this one in my collection for a couple of years, and I absolutely love it. I think talking about what makes it great for beginners also gives you a good idea for this game. This game, if I had to break it down in just a few words, this is a dungeon crawling Legend of Zelda type of, or at least 8-bit, 16-bit Legend of Zelda. It's that type of game brought to the table. It's the terminology of things in this game are very much akin to what you would hear in video games. It's an objective-based role-playing game. Okay, it's for solo or co-op players. Let's just dive off into this. Let's dive off. Like I said, it's an 8-bit adventure game or 16-bit adventure game brought to the table. If you love those style games, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. When it comes to Treasure Hunter and what's going on, all characters, you don't roll up characters here per se. All characters start off equally with their stats and their attributes. What you're going to do and what sets characters apart from the beginning is that you're going to roll on random treasure tables for your starting equipment, and that's going to be very much what defines your character starting off in this game. There are no classes to this game whatsoever. Characters are defined by their equipment. Treasure, the random treasure, is a big deal in this game. That's what this game really is all about. So the title, Treasure Hunter, is apropos, if you ask me. What this game is comprised of is you start your character. You roll up your random treasures. Now you can, like I said, this is designed for solo play or co-op play or even group play as co-op, obviously. But what you get is objective based. Okay, so unlike Fabled Lands, where you've got this huge living world and that you're going to explore this world and get involved in all kind of things. Treasure Hunter has a linear story, but it's done quite differently than anything I've ever seen on the table. It's very much akin to, again, those old video games of this style. You're going to get over 30 locations that are mapped out and detailed in the text. Okay? What you're going to get for each of these locations is an objective that you have to complete before you can move to the next location. So a lot of people may be already saying, well, wait a second. You know, I don't want to play a game where you can see everything on the map and everything's explained to you. Again, this is objective based, just like a video game. If you've played The Legend of Zelda and such, you go inside of a location, you know, you have an objective of beating the boss or solving a puzzle or doing whatever. This is very much the same. It doesn't take away from this game being able to see the levels, or the levels I should say, talking about video games, seeing the location maps, reading the descriptions, because overall your main goal is to complete the objective that you're giving. The game is exciting trying to complete the objectives, I have to say. Also, the rolling of treasure. You know, this game's all about treasure. Rolling up on those treasure, the random treasure charts. That's very exciting for this game. So if you love dungeon crawling, you love the idea of loot and shoot, this game could appeal very much to the power gamers of the world. It's very much bash the enemies, solve the puzzles, get the items, roll for treasure, and rinse and repeat, okay? But again, I'm not a huge fan of dungeon crawl style games, but this one was so different and it was so well done that it just stood out, and I instantly had to keep it in my collection. Once I really got into this, and it's not going anywhere for me, even though it's typically not a game I wouldn't play. When it comes to terminology, there's no encumbrance system here. People that are used to video games are going to find the terminology very easy to understand. When it comes to carrying capacities and such, your characters have item slots. Each type of item in the game takes up so many slots, so therefore it's very common sense that you have various slots, and once they're filled, you have to drop stuff to pick up more stuff. There's all kind of stuff going on in this game. This game sort of tends to level grinding like you would in an old school RPG game. You can revisit each of the levels that you've already completed over and over again, trying to get better treasure, trying to advance your level upwards. The game is skill based. As you level your character, you can purchase various skills, and those start to define your character a little bit more and more. But again, there are no character classes. So all of a sudden, if you decide, hey, I'm getting into magic, you can buy skills that help you with magic. Magic are not spells that you learn. Magic come in the form of items that you use. Same with combat. You can pick up some skills that allow you some extra attacks and such with melee combat or ranged combat and things. But really, it all comes down to the items. This is a very item-centric game. It's odd. For solo play, you can run it as a party. You can run it as a single player. You can pick up assistants in this game as part of your treasures. You can also modify your assistants. This game is very different. It is a blend of fantasy and sci-fi with a very heavy gloss of weird. A very heavy gloss of weird. I love it. Let's just take a look at the first piece of artwork they offer you for the game, and I think you can get an understanding of the weird level. Yeah, absolutely love it. And I have to say that the artwork throughout the game is very well done. It's a very well done game. I'm going to talk about those assistants in a second, but you know, the artwork here is striking and it's well done and it fits the game system overall. But as far as assistants go, your assistants are mechanical robot-like creatures that assist you in the game with combat and carrying items, healing, and all kind of stuff. You can find different arms and legs and body parts to attach to your assistants to give them more capabilities. Even to yourself, by the way. This is one weird game. I absolutely love it. And this game is not a choose your own adventure game, okay? This game, you're given a map. How you proceed through that map and how you conduct combat is up to you. This game is very much written for what we call theater of the mind. That the action happens in your mind. You're rolling dice and stuff on the table to get your results. So moving through a map, for example, just because we're doing this for beginners, let's pull up a map here. Let's pull up one that's a little more linear, not so open, so we can show some examples here. There's, like I said, this game, but here we go. Here's a typical map of the book. You'll have a starting point. Each room and location is detailed in the text, but there's also keys on here to show you treasure chest and monsters and locked doors and all this kind of stuff. In your mind, you should be able, you could put a marker on the map, for example, if you wanted to, but in your mind, you should just travel from location to location and resolve each thing as they come up in each location. Such as if you get into a location and it has some giant rats in it, for example, and a treasure chest. You should just look up the rats, get their stats and things, get your dice, and roll out combat with the giant rats. If you defeat them, then you can go over to the treasure chest and start rolling up on your random treasure. It's very cut and dry simple, but this could lead to more hobby gaming in the future. Objective-based games like these, it's very easy to drop some miniatures down on the table and create the maps and run the objectives as a miniature-based game, but that's more advanced. Like I said, this is best kept for the beginner at a theater of the mind level. When it comes to Fabled Lands and Treasure Hunter, for a cold start beginner, I think both of these are great, but if you had to choose one, I would definitely go with Fabled Lands. For the simple fact it's for beginners. Fabled Lands is running itself. Other than you rolling up your character and you making your base decisions, as far as the world goes, as far as what you encounter and how you encounter it and stuff, the game itself takes care of that. A little more imagination goes into Treasure Hunter. Okay, not much. This is a very beginner-friendly game, especially if you're coming from video games. It's a very different game. But both of these are great. But like I said, for the cold start beginner, Fabled Lands is where it's going to be. I'm actually probably going to do a more full review on both of these systems, but especially Treasure Hunter, because this game is so different and is so much fun that I really want to highlight this with its own video at some point. But yeah, both systems, I think if you're a cold start beginner, you're going to be able to dive into, and instead of worrying about needing a lot of tools and this and that, they're very easy, they're very light in rules, and you start learning by example. You start learning by your play examples. Yeah? Like I said, Fabled Lands does a great job at portraying the living, breathing world around characters. I think that's where a lot of people come into RPG games. That conception of that is one of the hardest things for them to come over, you know, to get into, you know, especially people used to video games and such. In a full role-playing game, you have total freedom of action. The world evolves around you, and Fabled Lands does a really good job at replicating that as a choose-your-own-adventure style. But yeah, I'm going to put a link to Drive Through RPG, my affiliate link. Use it, please, for Treasure Hunter. Yeah? Now, I bought this game as a print version, and I don't know where. It's not listed in the book. I bought it a few years ago. I can't find this in print anywhere. It may be on Amazon, but a quick search did not bring this up. You may be able to find it, but The PDF is available on drive-thru, link below. Also, if you do find this physical book or you do find the PDF, Eroth Publishing does this, and on their website they have all of the maps in color you can download and use as you want. They have a dice rolling app. This game can require you to use a whole lot of dice, okay? They make a easy to use app that goes right along with this. I think you can even put it on your cell phone. I'm not sure, but there's definitely a program you can download for your computer for your dice. Character sheets and such. Fabled Lands is not available on drive-thru. It is available on Amazon and many other sources according to where you live. So I'm not linking this. There's also several formats you can purchase this in. This is the standard. They make a large print style format. They make PDFs, etc. I will put a link to their website there. You can also find character sheets, downloadable maps of the world and the locations, and different things going on with Fabled Lands. Anyways, we can move over to just a little bit of general discussion for the show. It's been extremely hot here. We're talking 120 degrees every day. I know I keep complaining about it, but it's something to complain about. It's been extremely hot here at the Fortress of Doom. As I've said, I've been locked in the studio just working as hard as I can. We're working on terrain, we're painting miniatures, we're going wild. It actually feels good to get outside the studio for a little bit. Our weekly tabletop show is a little bit late this week. When I normally film this on Fridays, we had a power outage that went almost all day. I loaded up the wife and we went to a town about an hour away from here. We just sat and we had lunch and we stayed in air conditioning because it's way too hot to hang out here without air conditioning. I mean, I can survive, but it's not going to be comfortable. Plus the lights were out. I couldn't paint anyways. Talking about painting, I'll throw a picture up. Where's it going to go? Where do we normally throw them up? Over here? No, over here. Everything's backward when you're looking at the camera. Wherever the picture is. Heck, we'll just do it full screen. But I did our first miniature for the show that was for sale. Of course, Richard over in the UK snatched it up, and I'm going to sign that over as his first miniature. And he commissioned us to do a few more pieces. And that's great. We'll be working on that this week. But it's still going to be weeks and weeks and weeks of working in the studio. But anyways, guys, you know what's going on around here. What's going on around your end? If you've got recommendations for beginners for different games, make sure that it's something they can pick up and just start playing and learning from. I'm sure they're glad to hear it because, hey, we have one of the best communities surrounding our hobbies on YouTube, if you ask me. Make sure if you're a new beginner and you want to know more information and such, or you have questions, you can hit me up over on the Random Encounter Army Facebook group, the Facebook page, email, go to the About page on the channel. If you're getting into solo gaming and you're starting off your hobby or you're wanting to take your hobby further, make sure you're subscribed because we're about to take this channel out of first gear around here and we're going to go into solo tabletop role-playing games like no channel before us. I promise you, we're getting there. We're getting there, okay? Anyways, this has been Table Talk. I need to go drink some paint water and eat some paint off a brush. So I'll see you guys very shortly, actually, with Steve Crompton coming on. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Hey, this is DeathStalker V. I wanted to thank you for watching the Random Encounter Show. If you love tabletop gaming, solo RPGing, or classic video games, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. If you want more of the show, head over to our channel's About page. There you will find our Facebook and Facebook group pages where you can join in on the fun. Want to help support the show? Make sure to use our affiliate and sponsor links next time you're shopping for your favorite gaming products. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time when we roll for Random Encounter.